So now I'm going to take you on a ghost tour in the vaults in Edinburgh, which I'm very excited about, and I'm hoping to give you a sneak peek at what it's like to be here at night with the ghosts. I hope you enjoy it.
Against all odds, twice in a row, everyone is here on time. Amazing! So if you want to gather over here, one of the things that brought me to Edinburgh in the first place is this amazing combination of horror culture and history, the way they intersect and influence one another. We're going to get a healthy dose of both tonight. Now right now, to get you situated, we're on the Royal Mile. Up at the top you've got the castle, down at the bottom Hollywood Palace, and in the middle are the vaults. That's where we're heading. What we're going to be doing right now is we're going to head down this way. We're going to stop a couple of times above ground and sort of get a sense of where we are before heading underground for the good juicy bits. Along the way, feel free to ask any questions that you think of. I'll do my best to answer. Just say, hey Adrian, I've got a question, and I'll do my best. If I don't know the answers, I'll know for next time. Thank you very much. Yeah, actually, you know, he's got other things to do. We're not his beck and call. Okay, so we're going to stop over. Going to get a good gathering around here. Oh! Yeah, get in the way. Okay, is everyone? Yeah, looks like it. Great. So, this is a good place to start our tour. It's the one place in the United Kingdom where it's legal to spit in public. You will be able to see, based on the globules, that it's been a busy evening for the heart of Midlothian.
Yeah.
So, the idea is that it brings you good luck to spit onto the middle because it shows your disgust for the horrible things that happen here. Now look, airborne illness is still around. I'm not going to ask anyone to do any spitting tonight, but once my back's turned, feel free. The idea is that it shows your disgust because this was the entrance to the Tollbooth jail. Big spiral staircase that led underground and led to a series of cells that went down that way, basically underneath the floor. You'll notice underneath your feet over here, just behind you there's a series of mosaics which have dates on them. The earliest is 1386, the latest is 1610, and these are dates at which different wings of the jail were built. So you'll actually see a bunch of those kinds of mosaics up and down the Royal Mile, just lots of little dates of when important things happened. So, Tollbooth Jail, major site for judicial torture and public execution. Now, torture, a big part of life at the time. We're talking cheeks poked in with hot pokers, hands cut off, that kind of thing. We're going to go more into detail about torture later on, but for now it's a good thing to keep in the back of your mind. The main thing, though, is the executions. This is the 1500s, there's not a huge amount on TV. People need to find other ways to entertain themselves. The big one is watching people die. They would build up big platforms just under your feet right over here, so everyone would sort of gather round. It's always a very big event, you get a big crowd, people hanging out of their windows, watching everything going on. And you could be executed for all sorts. Anything from fraud, theft, murder, obviously. Or in the case of one woman, Maggie Dixon, for failing to notify the authorities of a pregnancy. They hanged her for that. This is an incredibly brutal period of history, and for now I think the main takeaway is just to be grateful that no one's going to be snatching you off the street to kill you for no good reason, unless you've done something really bad recently. So we're going to get executions and things. I think it's like a Middle Ages thing, and it was, but like a lot of medieval torture is actually more like public humiliation.
Yeah.
We got way more brutal around like 1600. So we had like 300-400 years when we were supposedly more civilized, when actually we were way more nasty and way more aggressive. And that is exactly around the time that Edinburgh becomes a really, really important city. It's always the thing with big groups, you never really get a sense of when everyone's on. So, behind me, right over here, this is what we call the Mercat Cross. This is a very, very important building. It was a big gathering point for the city of Edinburgh throughout much of the 1600s. And you're doing things like you're putting announcements of new laws, wanted posters, that kind of thing on the walls. Now, the reason for that is because, basically people are always around here. It's called the Mercat Cross because the market was here. Mercat, market, language changes over time, but that is. Obviously, you've got St Giles' Cathedral, people coming out to church on a Sunday, and weirdly, one of the most important parts is actually that parking lot back there. The parking lot.
Oh, yeah.
Now, that doesn't look like much nowadays. Back in the 1500s, that was actually the main burial ground for the city of Edinburgh. There are still loads of bodies underneath the ground over there. Most notably, you'll find John Knox, reformer of Scotland, underneath parking space number 23. Now, once that place starts to overflow, they move the burial ground down to Greyfriars Kirkyard, which is up the bridge from where we met. That place is kind of amazing, free to go into. It's only a square mile large, and there are 120,000 bodies in there. In some places piled up to 60 people one on top of the other. So it's the kind of thing when you walk over there, see any bones sticking out, just do us a favour, pop them back in with your foot very gently. Keeps the place much more neat. Now, that's kind of the way that Edinburgh works. Anywhere that you're going, there's a good chance that you're standing on top of dead bodies, weird torture dungeons, secret passageways, all sorts of nasty little secrets, and the vaults are one of those. Now, this is a device called the Maiden. So, if you think about the guillotine in the 1700s, right, the Maiden's basically the same thing 200 years earlier. So, you've got an oak structure, right, you've got a blade up at the top, a weight at the bottom, and a rope between the two. Chop the rope, blade comes down, heads roll. You then hoist those heads up onto sticks and you put them all the way up and down the street, so anybody walking by would see a head and a stick and they'd be like, right, I don't want to be like that guy, I don't want to do whatever they did, and hopefully they wouldn't commit any crime. Nowadays, we know this does not work, but back then they were super attached to the idea. But the thing people loved about the Maiden most of all was the fact that you could disassemble it and reassemble it wherever you liked. So, let's say you've watched 6 people die in front of this building this week. It's getting a bit boring, a bit stale. You want to spice it up a bit. So what you do is you take down the Maiden, you rebuild it down over there, watch people die in front of those buildings. Much more fun. Your week's been made. Spiced it right up. Now, obviously, this device caused huge amounts of death and destruction. You can actually see the real piece in the National Museum of Scotland, a couple of blocks away from where we are. Free to go into, worth checking out as well. It's very eerie being in the room with the Maiden. But while this story doesn't have a happy ending, it maybe has a fair one. Because the man who introduced the device to Scotland, the 4th Earl of Morton, was himself executed on his own device for treason. Which, fair enough, I guess. So we're going to head down this way.
Aww.
Okay, am I group all together? Looks like it. Okay, so behind me, right here. Oh, there's some more? With us? Yes. So, this is our last stop above ground, and there's a couple of things I wanted to point out. First off, this building over here, Tron Kirk. Does anyone who's not Scottish want to guess what Kirk might be?
Yes.
Church.
Church, nice and easy. Tron Kirk, Tron Church. Very, very simple. Now, the Tron Kirk was important in the 1500s and 1600s because it was the site of a major punishment at the time. You see, if you were a merchant selling your goods out in the square, you needed to go through the toll booth. So we saw the toll booth jail earlier. The toll booth gets its name from a big set of scales that was like the entrance over here. So if you wanted to sell your goods, you put your wares on one side of the scale, and on the other side you put up a series of metals, and that represented how much money people were paying. If it's in balance, fair trade. No one's getting cheated. If it's out of balance, someone's being dodgy. So if you're a merchant, you're found overcharging for your wares, you'd be dragged out to the front door of the church over there, get your ear pinned to the door, and it would get nailed in for up to 24 hours. Anybody passing by would see you standing there with your ear in the door, and they'd be like, right, that guy's dodgy, not doing any business with them, and basically you'd lose all your business. Think of it as your original Yelp review, right? Now, the other thing to bear in mind that I want to point out is this big main street over here. You can kind of see up either side of the church. It goes all the way along. Very normal main street, you've got some pubs, you've got some shops, you've got Subway over there. Very standard main street. Now what you might not be able to see is that is actually a bridge. It doesn't look like it nowadays, but it's a bridge built in 1776, South Bridge. Connects the Royal Mile over here, the old town, with the Surgeons' Hall and the universities over on the other end. Now underneath, you've got all these big archways, and over the years all these big buildings get built up by the side and they block off the archways. Now inside of them, there are 120 little rooms, and those are the vaults. That's where we're going. So we're going to be underneath that. So on the way, what we're going to do is we're going to head down this way on the left-hand side. Then we're going to turn left. We're going to go underneath the one archway of the bridge that's still visible, so we've got the sense of where we're going. We're going to turn left again and head underground for the rest of the tour. This is where we get the term, and I can't say it, out loud because it's the family-friendly tour, but S-faced. You went home and your face was covered in S. Now this has mostly been discontinued as a practice, but look, it's after dark on a Saturday night. Keep your ears peeled either way. So follow me. A party fact in a little bit so much. Yardy-loo. Yardy-loo. Down the left-hand side over here. Probably just slap a wee bit. So what have you got planned in your time here?
Well, just to see as much as we can really for the day too.
You're the highlight.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Drink lots of whiskey. Vodka, I was going to say. Sorry, I'm Polish.
Oh, no, hey, that's fine. Yeah, lots of whiskey, ideal.
Yes, we saw the castle today.
Okay, very fair.
What else do we need to see?
Well, see, I always say to people, the thing about Edinburgh is that it's a really good place to go without a plan.
Yeah,
because it's so
good to improvise.
It's so small, and yet there's like so much to see within it.
Yeah.
So there's like a bunch of cool free stuff. There's a bunch of like little things that might catch your eye.
Yes.
Like it's a lovely place to go. With, like where you sort of make note of a few things. Maybe like grab a pint, wander around. I would definitely say, if you like, like pretty walks and markets and things. I live in Leith, and Leith, like down at the shore, is really, really pretty.
Right.
But like ultimately, it's kind of just a great city to wander around without a plan and figure it out as you go.
But the Maiden sounds nice.
The Maiden. Well, so that's. That's at the museum.
We're not going to try it.
No. No, I think you have to pay extra for that.
For the experience.
Are you going to be around to complain?
I think, basically if you slip one of the curators like a 50, they might get your partner in. If we go up this way. I mean, that's how my last 3 relationships ended.
You just show them the Maiden.
Oh, yeah.
This is what happens at the end of the relationship.
Yeah, they were like, you're way too excited about this, I'm out. Yes, the cows, as you've noticed. So this is the cow gates. This is the way that merchants would take their goods up to the market on the other end, and the cows behind is a good reminder. So we're going up to the left here, folks.
We're going to the dark side.
Oh, yes.
Oh, it's getting more and more dodgy.
Which is made even more clear by the 2 metal bars on the side and the student club a bit further up. Okay, we're going to gather around here.
Oh.
Go.
Oh, is this the one? Oh.
Freaky. This is our section. So, as you may have noticed, you probably heard music coming out of the bridge there.
Yeah.
That is actually an old vault that's been converted. So all of the bars and clubs and things up and down the street have all been converted into seating areas, but those are all old vaults, basically, when they're built into the bridge.
And they must be full of spirits.
Oh, absolutely. Full every kind. And never the one that you planned. No. So this is the entrance to the vaults. Keep your eyes out for any cars and things. Saturday night, it can be quite busy. So in a moment, we're about to go up some stairs to go down some stairs again. That might seem a little counterintuitive, but I promise it does make sense. Again, Edinburgh, a very tall city, right? So you've got the street that I pointed out earlier, like 2 or 3 floors up from where we are right now. So at any given moment, we're like 1 floor down, 2 floors up, depending on where we are in the building. As such, we're going to be in a tight space. If you'd feel more comfortable wearing a mask, now is the time to put one on. No pressure either way, just putting it out there. Now, is anybody here sensitive to camera flashes? No? Okay, in that case, feel free to take as many pictures as you like. No video, please. I don't think there's any video. But pictures are completely fine. And if I'm in the way, just say, hey, Adrian, shove off. I will do. But I don't show up on camera, so it shouldn't be an issue. Now, the other thing to bear in mind is this big step. This is the biggest step in Edinburgh. There's a bigger one, I haven't seen it. You'll remember it on the way in. Will you remember it on the way out? That is the question. Please do. I do not want to deal with any broken faces tonight. So basically, yeah, in we come.